Serious, what hidden family secret were you finally told about when you reached a certain age? I was 22 years old when I was told that I had a niece who was 8 years old who I had never met. Turns out my brother and their new wife were pregnant when they were married. Her family was uber religious, and they didn't want the family to know about the pregnancy, so they gave that baby up for adoption. Luckily, it was an open adoption, so I finally got to meet her when I was 32 years old. I blame fucking religion on breaking apart this family, when they should have been able to just have the baby and go on with their lives. One of my great-grandfathers would sexually touch my aunt and my aunt's cousin when he was alone with them. Whole family found out when my aunt and aunt's cousin grew up, but decided to keep it hidden from the new generations. And my great-grandfather never admitted to his wrongdoings and took it to his grave. So glad my mum kept me away from that man when I was younger. My great-grandfather's wife knew about the abuse the whole time, but chose to stay quiet and let it happen for fear of embarrassment. Grandpa cheated on my grandma and had a bunch of kids with another woman in town. So many cousins everywhere. Neither wife was fond of him by the end, and only a couple of the kids were involved in his life. Once he was cremated, his ashes were passed around because no one really wanted them. When my grandma passed, my aunts and uncles threw grandpa at the bottom on her feet before they buried her because that's where she would want him to spend eternity. I kinda love it. My grandfather raped my grandmother and my mum witnessed it. I was aware they divorced in the early 1950s. But the significance didn't click until she told me this. Based on some dates, I strongly suspect my grandmother probably married him because she had to, and it probably wasn't consensual. I'm scared to get genetic tested because I'm worried I'm going to find half aunts and uncles conceived in a similar manner. We know nothing of his life after the divorce. Not really a secret, but I wasn't told that I had a deformity until I was in high school. I was born tongue-tied, and the doctor gave me a frenectomy. So I went my whole life not knowing I had a deformity. I've always had issues with enunciation to the point of having to see a speech therapist. It doesn't help that I also talk fast, which makes things harder for others to understand me. While I'm mostly intelligible now, I still have some difficulties with speech. My grandpa told us at Thanksgiving one year that his eldest son actually wasn't biologically his. He got back with my bio-grandma after the Vietnam War, and she was pregnant with someone else's baby. He raised him as his own. Even after they divorced, he remarried, and his eldest son and the rest of the children he had didn't know until they were all well into adulthood. It was a secret he kept for almost 40 years, when they thought I couldn't hear them. That the reason my mother and my aunt were sent to live with my great-grandmother when my mother was 12 was that my grandfather was sexually abusing my mother. I wasn't told, but I was never allowed to meet my grandfather, and we didn't go to his funeral. My mum didn't tell me that she was adopted until I was in my 20s. She also later confessed that she suffered years of sexual abuse by her older brother, who resented her adoption. I never knew why we weren't close to one of my uncles. My mum just said they were very different people. After he lost a child, my mum said that God had punished him enough, and she resumed some contact. Mum's dad isn't her dad. My grandmother had a lifelong affair with another man who used to then take the kids on days outs and holidays. My mum thought he was her uncle. At age 13 she found out the truth. Half my mum's siblings are to the husband, half are to the uncle. From what I understand, the husband knew it was going on and just put up with it. I found out I had a sister who had been given up for adoption. The only reason I found out was the person who informed me no longer felt bound to secrecy after my mum died, and the person who told me had receipts solid enough that I have no reason to doubt them. It also explains why Mum freaked out when I told her I'd done a 23andMe test. My brother wasn't adopted at birth, unlike what we were told. His birth mother took him home for about 2 weeks, and then changed her mind after severely neglecting him. Our parents got him then. Oh, and I'm still not supposed to tell my brother about any of this. Mum told me when Dad died, but won't tell bro. It's a terrible secret to keep. After my grandmother died, My parents were reminiscing about family history and mentioned my uncle having 3 daughters. Up until that day, for the first 24 years of my life, I'd only knew about my uncle's account and 2 daughters. Oh yeah, my parents said, your uncle had a 3rd before your 2 cousins. Like years before, I was really close with my father growing up. I moved with him when he and my mum divorced. Went to his wedding to his 2nd wife. To when I was 18, I found out that he raped my mum's younger sister when she was 14, and then raped and abused my mum their whole marriage. I haven't spoken to him in 19 years. We believe that a distant uncle was involved in the IRA. Certain dates and times lined up to certain events. He was gone during those times. Always came back a few days after in a sketchy way. We have no definitive proof, but too much is lining up to be a coincidence. He died a few years ago. Cancer. Had a half-brother that was 15 years older than me. I was 23 when I found out. Then I found out I was a product of an affair. My dad was a fertility specialist and got my mum pregnant with me. On the plus side, they did marry and stay together for 23 years. But wish I had known about my brother. Why I was never allowed in a room alone with one of my distant relatives. There was never any confirmation given about what they had supposedly done. But it was heinous enough that everyone in my family was warned about him, but not told why until they were deemed old enough. After my dad died, I had a long visit with his sisters, and we talked about what a horrible human my mum was. They told me lots of things, and I told them a lot too. I guess they just held back out of respect to him, and when he was gone, the talking began. I was 28. I have a half-brother who's in prison for murdering his grandmother. I'm not sure it was ever a secret, but at some point when I was 10 or 12 I became aware of it. I believe my brother is still locked up. He's elderly now, and I doubt he even knows I exist. My mum casually dropped the other day how she was married to this guy for 10 years and helped raise his daughter from when she was 5-18. Like, hello. How did you have another not biological daughter, and I have never heard about her until now? My dad raising me was not my biological dad. My mum was in a very abusive relationship that she got out of when she was pregnant with me. My great-grandfather was a child molester. The family protected him to avoid upsetting his wife. 2 of my great-uncles don't talk and haven't for years. Their wives don't either, even though they're sisters. One's daughter was babysitting for the other. The father of the kids being babysat came home drunk and hit on her. My mum had an affair with my paternal grandfather, and she got pregnant during it. My dad never got a paternity test done on my younger sister, so we're not sure who the father is. There's a 50-50 chance that she's also my aunt. I found out my dad had been married once before. It was during World War II. There were no children and it was short-lived. It was really old news by the time I heard of it. I was 16 and I really didn't know what to make of it. My elderly aunt recently passed away, and going through some boxes of her stuff I discovered that she was arrested and fined for prostitution a couple of times during her 20s in NYC back in the 50s. I had an older sibling that died before I was born. My mother was put on trial for the death. I then found out last year, over 40 years later, that she lied about what happened. It's been a rough year. My dad told me, while he was very drunk, that he had a kid with someone in the early 1970s. But she, the mother, wanted nothing to with him. He died not long after telling me and never spoke of it again. My grandma was hospitalized for a nervous breakdown and treated with electroshock therapy. I presume it was for depression or possibly postpartum depression. My daughter also has depression. When my late mum got with my late dad, she was still married to her first husband and didn't divorce him until the early 90s. She and my dad got together in 1970 and didn't marry until 2002. My oldest uncle never met him before he passed, was the product of incest between my grandmother and her father, but passed off as between her and her future husband. The 50s man. My dad told me he did not move abroad because he was in love with my mother. They are now divorced. BCS they fought for 20 years, because he wanted to escape his mother. I'm a revenge baby. Found out at 31 by overhearing a conversation between my mum and uncle on the way to my grandma's funeral. The immigration timelines didn't match up. I just found out a devastating and dark family secret last Thanksgiving. I won't share specifics, but I will never be able to look at my brother the same way again. My grandfather was my grandmother's second husband, and her first was abusive. Explains why a lot of my mum's side of the family is the way they are. My mum actually killed herself when hit by a car. I'm still going to stick with drunken stumble over the highway median. They were not there. My dad got married when he was a teenager, so him and my mum were never actually married. They just never felt like dealing with it, so I had axe murder in my family. Wasn't a secret, the whole damn state knew about it. It's a secret to my kids and younger cousins. My grandfather is a rapist and my older brother is a child molester. I already knew about the second. You'll never guess how. Mum had a brother named David, but we all called him Dave. Later I found out she had a second brother whose name was Dave. Turns out I descend from incestuous aliens who arrived on this junk about 4,500 years ago. Cool, right? My dad got with my mum when he was 37 and she was 13. They married at 15. My dad's a piece of shit. That my mum killed a woman and that's why she killed herself. Because the feds were looking for her. I found out how my great-great-grandmother murdered my great-great-grandfather. She became a hero.